Kathy Chavers and Dishnakas. Welcome, everybody. With this morning's meeting, we'll start, as we always do, with invocation by our spiritual advisor, Mr. Gene Goodsky. Miigwech, Jean, thank you. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
Does this one work? Oh, yeah, okay. So under selection of the election board, we're going to add discussion on code of conduct or policies for candidates for council. So code of conduct for candidates for council.
Oh, do you want? You need Dave.
Jenna, where is, where's the memorandum of understanding? of-
Yeah, we're going to add that. I was just waiting for this. I don't know if you wanted me to continue or not. Downstairs? Sure. I'll text the chef. Want me to bring it up here or just have him go downstairs?
Let's go downstairs.
Okay. I'll let the chef know. And then at the very end, under myself, we're going to add pressing charges, the pressing charges memo for discussion. So those are the two additions that I have.
Okay, any other additions? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda with those additions. Moved by Shane, second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. From the meeting held January 15th, 2020 at Net Lake. We're using technology this morning a little bit, so.
I have a couple of questions regarding the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay.
I wasn't there,
Oh, yes.
but on the first page, it says moved by David Morrison Senior, second by Peter Boney to approve the agenda with the addition of Jalen Strong with Parliament alternative outcomes. Do we have a list of what the alternative outcomes are?
Jalen, do you want to explain?
It says here that you had the moved by David and second by Pete to approve the agenda with the addition of Jalen Strong with Parliament alternative outcomes. And I was wondering what the outcomes were, alternative ones.
That was just something that we brought up to bring up, I guess, further discussion within the community. But basically, with all the restrictions that Polymet would have for like people to go on to the site to do the sugar bush and whatever else we might want to do there, they were offering to either buy us land for us to have our sugar bush somewhere else, maybe somewhere we don't have ownership of right now. I don't know if that would be necessarily under our name or how that works, or if there's some other outcomes where we want to use that site to kind of keep a place for us to teach younger ones how to do sugar bush and stuff. So we're just kind of bringing it up about whatever you guys wanted to do or whatever the community wants to do with that. I think PolyMed is pretty on board with finding a solution that works for everybody.
Some things I just want to point out is that, before we do any type of things with PolyMed regarding the land, and this is an 1854 treaty area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before we do anything with that, we need to basically talk with the other bands, Fond du Lac and Grand Portage, and see where they stand on this issue, because this affects them as well. One of my other concerns is that PolyMed's coming in and basically calling the shots within the 1854 treaty area, and it's like we don't have nothing, we can't say anything, or we can't do anything, and that's not right. I oppose PolyMed and what they're trying to do, myself, and for this land, okay, we'll buy land, basically they're already sitting on our land in the 1854 treaty area. Now they want to kick us off that and we can't utilize that land. Okay, we'll buy your land somewhere else in the 1854 treaty area. It's already our land. Doesn't make sense to me. The other thing is I'd like to know from them is how many acres does this mine that they are looking to open up or are going to open up, how many acres that is? Because one way or another, we should be, as Bois Forte, should be compensated for that. It doesn't mean that we are approving it or condone the mine, but we should be compensated for it. That's my belief, whether we approve it or not. Because that's our land, that's our treaty area, ceded territory area. That's just my view on it.
Shane, just for your information, we did ask Jalen to bring this to a community meeting and also to the elders with regards to the Sugar Bush area, because that's actually, I think we only had one elder that was accessing the Sugar Bush area.
But he just remembers going there when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think to his knowledge, he went there until he was 5 or 6. We had some elder interviews the last 2 days with Hank and Jean about Sugar Bush. And then to address the other bands consultations, it was PolyMed was kind of thinking about it. They never actually said anything, but the Tipo and I don't know if he's the Wayne Dupuis at Fond du Lac. He also was one of the alternatives that he brought up to me. I didn't actually think of wanting to actually have an alternative. I wanted to personally use that land as a resource to teach kids how to do that, how to do Sugar Bush. But he brought up the idea of possibly getting a donation to help fund a Great Lakes heritage site on a property that Fond du Lac is going to be, hopefully, somewhere in Duluth, I think, is where they wanted to set it up. And then this was before Marianne retired from Grand Portage, but she was also kind of on board with finding an alternative site just based on the restrictions of everything. And then I understand like what you're saying about like the ceded territory. I agree with you, because in the past couple of years people have been kind of buying up land and taking less. We have so much area to use, and now that people are buying it, that area is kind of shrinking down. And I don't know if, I guess this is where my knowledge of like legality kind of goes, but I don't know if like we necessarily own that property because it was ceded. We just have the ability, the rights to hunt, gather, and fish on those lands. So I don't know if it's necessarily our land. It was at one point, but once we signed the treaty, I don't know if anybody in the crowd knows anything about that, but I think, we have the ability to use that land, but we don't own it.
Okay. I think, because kind of like to point out my how I see it is that if you look at all these tables in this room, they represent the 1854 treaty area. Now you take away this table, that table. that table there. The area is getting smaller and smaller. And what happens once these mines start polluting the area, the water, it'll be taking away more tables. Boisport, basically, our area is shrinking, the 1854 area is shrinking, and our compensation is staying the same. Even though we may get compensated, doesn't mean that we approve the mines. That's two different issues for me. But we got to look out for our future as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I envision like the TIPO position as, rather than, I don't know if we necessarily have like say over what happens with these like other governments. I think that kind of comes down to the guardian-ward relationship with the federal government. So I don't know if we have a say in that, but I understand, what you're saying. I think that's kind of what I'm looking at. I don't agree with mining or any resources being pulled out of the ground to, hurt the surrounding areas based on the waste. I think it's more of just like monitoring them so that we have somewhat of a say in monitoring what they do, making sure they're taking all the right steps, making sure that everything is going to work as optimally as possible, I guess.
When they say that, though, who has a say and who doesn't have a say, I think that if you look at the 1854 Treaty Agreement, it doesn't say anything about polluting that area. So I definitely think that we do have a say. We should have a say.
Thank you. And I'd like to wish Jalen happy birthday.
No. Jean.
Gene. Oh, he's gone. He left. He's 78? 78? Happy birthday, Gene. Sorry, Jalen. My hearing's going, Doris. Thank you, Jalen. Okay, Shane, you had another question?
I think I think after this community meeting or community meetings that we're going to have regarding this, is that we should look at setting up a meeting with maybe Fond du Lac and Grand Portage at the same time and see how they feel about this.
A joint meeting, you mean?
Yep.
I think we normally have that meeting like in March or early
Couple
April,
of March?
Yeah.
where we meet with
In the spring?
1854 and Grand Portage. So, and we normally get together at the 1854 office. So maybe that's one of the discussions we can have, because I know we always try to get together with them because we always want to know what their what lakes they're going to be netting on. So
We'll put that on the agenda for that meeting.
Alrighty.
You had other comments, Jane?
Nope.
No? Okay. With that, if we can have a motion to approve the January 15 meeting minutes in Net Lake?
move.
Moved by Chief. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Introduction of new staff.
Going to bring her up. You just want to bring her up and introduce her, and then go through and shake the council's hand.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning to all. This is Danielle Betcher. She's the new tribal officer. We are looking to get her a waiver so she can start working as soon as possible, but that has to be approved by the academy director in Artesia in Mexico. So that's what we're working on now. Meanwhile, she's going to be doing admin work and writing with some of the officers so she can get familiarized with the tribe.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Jenna, can you read the?
Approve the request from Louise Isham to Sole Source Food and Venue from Fortune Bay in the amount of $8,995 for State of the Band. Approve the contract for therapeutic massage therapy for the substance abuse program. Approve the CCDTF contract for chemical dependency services. Approve the amendment to the Long-Term Homeless Supportive Services Program subcontract. Approve the request from Randy Long to sole source from Lisa HYPPA for QuickBooks training. Adopted resolution number 63-2020, establishing the Bois Forte Health and Human Services Board. Adopted resolution number 64-2020, lease agreement and sublease agreement with the Embarrass Vermilion Federal Credit Union and the merger agreement between the Northern Eagle Federal Credit Union and Embarrass Vermilion Federal Credit Union. Approve the space lease agreement between the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe and Bois Forte RTC for the Twin Cities Urban Office. And adopted resolution number 65-2020, appointing Christopher D. Anderson to serve as MCT Tribal Election Court of Appeals Judge for the 2020 regular election.
Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve.
A question regarding the therapeutic massage therapy for the substance abuse program. Is this allowable under the grant?
Pam?
Being paid for through our revenue,
Okay,
and it's not a billable service.
okay,
I did bring it up at our last American Indian Advisory Council that to see if we can pursue legislation to add the therapeutic massage therapy so that insurance companies can bill for it.
okay.
If they're licensed physical therapist, they can bill for it. But she does have the licensing and the credentialing for the services that she's providing. And we have seen a success in how it's helping with our clients and helping them to deal with trauma and then stress. It's very therapeutic.
This is implemented in your outpatient program, correct?
Yes. So she does come Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursday. Yeah, so, I mean, we're hoping at some point we can bill for those services. So right now, it comes, or the pay comes out of our revenue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Which, Pam?
Big Rich.
Well, I'll move.
Move to approve the consent agenda made by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Before we move on, I'd like to thank Corey Strong for his time and energy on the deal with credit unions. Corey invested a lot of time and energy and did a really great job. Thank you, Corey.
Miigwech, Corey. For those that don't know, that the Embarrass Vermilion Federal Credit Union and the Northern Eagle Federal Credit Union combined into one credit union, and Corey was doing HR director plus overseeing the credit union, which was entailing 2 jobs at 2 different locations, which is Net Lake and Vermilion. So we really do want to thank Corey, like Chief said, for his work with that, and the board of directors that also works with that. And we're very happy with that because they are increasing services, but also they are keeping our staff on that are there. And it's a win-win situation for our Bois Forte tribal members and the members of the credit union. So miigwech, Corey. With that, we have the certification of candidates. I will now turn it over to Travis Morrison, the vice chair, to do the certification for the chairman candidates.
I'll entertain a motion for certification of the tribal chair candidates. This is you first. Candidate Kathy Chavers.
Are we going to do them by one?
Yes.
Move.
Moved by Shane,
Second.
second by Chief. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Kathy Chavers, silent. Motion carried.
Takes a while to get the... going.
Chair candidate Miranda Villabrin Lilia. Call for a motion to certify.
Move.
Moved by Shane,
Second.
second by Pete. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Carried.
I got a question on the process here now, just so our band members are aware. It's my understanding that the two candidates for the chairman, the election will take place in June, during the June election. So it's not, their names won't be on the primary election, so just keep that in mind. I just want to point that out.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Trav. I'll take on with the District 1 representative certification of candidates. We have Gordy, Jonesy, Adams Jr. Do we have a motion to approve Gordy?
Move.
Moved by Chief. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent?
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have Tara Gizik. Motion to approve Tara Gizik.
Move.
Moved by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent.
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Motion to approve Mildred R. Holmes.
Move.
Moved by
Second.
Chief, second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent.
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Renika Love, motion to approve.
Move.
Moved by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent.
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Travis Morrison, motion to approve.
Move.
Moved by Chief, second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent.
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Charles Chaz Wagner, motion to approve.
Move.
Moved by Shane, second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent.
Silent?
Travis, silent. Motion carried. There. Good luck to all the candidates.
Yep, good luck.
Next.
Good luck to everybody there.
Next, we have the lottery for placement of names on the ballot. This will indicate how the names will be on the ballot.
Do any of them have like a, like a nickname on it?
How they written their, submitted their names is how they'll be on the ballot. Like, for example, Gordy Jonesy. That's how his name will be on the ballot. And the same thing with Charles Chaz Wagner.
Okay.
So It's how you want your name, and they do allow nicknames this year, so, due to the change in the election ordinance at the MCT. Okay, Wicko's got Vicky's got the names there for the chairman candidates for listing on the ballot. Oh, we do that at the general? Oh, at the general, yes, I'm sorry. For the District 1 representative. Hang on, we're almost there. Yeah, Dave can do them. You can draw the names.
You should do it right in the front there for the camera.
Yeah.
I do have a question too. I don't.
Yes.
I was just thinking about last election. You know, we had like the YouTube channel where everyone kind of did the introductions and kind of talked about what their platforms are. I was wondering who does those.
Those are being done by Louise
Okay.
at the tribal government office. I know that there are some that came in and did theirs already.
Okay.
So they are being done at the tribal government office by Louise Isham.
Okay. I was just gonna see if like it would be possible to do like a standardized like 10 questions for each
Oh, that's a good idea.
participant. So that like I know we've had caucuses down in like the cities when I was living down there, or there's one in Duluth. And a lot of times there's not enough time, I guess, for these candidates to actually speak their mind. So like a lot of times they're like, oh, one person will answer a question, and then the next person will be like, oh yeah, whatever he said. And, you know, that, it's not really individualized or, you know, coming from someone's actual like head, I guess. So I think one thing that I would like to do, or see if Louise would be interested in doing, was I saw it on the Kiwanabe band when Donald Chosa was running over there. And what they had was kind of like a podcast almost, where like they had brought somebody in, recorded them, put it on YouTube, same thing, but they had like questions about each topic maybe that was of interest for them, and so that way it would be an individualized answer and response from each candidate. And then if we need, you know, if they want to have caucuses down at the urban offices, they don't have to use those questions. They can actually ask a different question if that's something that we could do, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, we could look at doing that.
Like Kathy said, some of the candidates already did like their intro video, but I wonder if I could talk to Louise maybe about setting
Yeah.
up like a second session of
Yep.
them where we
Okay.
have those standardized questions, or maybe work with like KBFT, maybe we do it somehow through them.
Sure.
But I think that's a
I-
really, really good idea.
I did ask KBFT, like I think a couple weeks ago, and I believe Chaz said that they're not supposed to be like super political,
Oh.
and so I didn't know that's why I didn't know
can
if he
do
was
that.
doing it, but I think with Louise,
Yeah,
you know, we
I
could
think
just
it's a
sit
good
down.
idea either way, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yep,
Okay.
we can do that. Thank you, Jalen.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, now this is how the names will appear on the ballot for the District 1 representatives. Tara Gizek will be listed first. Then Travis Morrison. Renika Love will be next. Charles Chaz Wagner will be next. Gordon Jonesy Adams Jr. will be next. Mildred R. Holmes will be last. So that's the way the names will be listed on the ballot for the primary election. Okay, Jenna, next you added a code of conduct.
Oh, we can do that after selection of the election board, or do you want to do it now?
We can do it now.
Okay. So a question came up on where people can, where they can campaign, and we sent it to legal, and legal said maybe we should develop, because the code of ethics and the personnel policy only apply to employees. And so legal suggested maybe we develop a code of conduct for candidates that are running for council, to kind of outline, you know, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable as far as campaigning.
What's the other mic? No, the other mic.
This one?
Yeah.
Sure.
One that.
This is the recording one.
Oh, that's recording.
Yeah, this is the,
Oh, I couldn't. I didn't know if they could hear you out there.
did you guys hear that? Or do you want me to repeat it? Repeat it? Heard it? Okay, thanks, Barb. So it's on the agenda for discussion as requested by the council.
I believe that one of the questions was regarding posting of fundraising at government entities or buildings or whatever. I think that was one of the questions that was raised
Yep.
the other day. And I know that government facilities you don't post on, but the question was the Net Lake School and C-Store. So discussion, council?
One thing is that, has it been allowed in the past? Has it been, people been able to hang it up at the, maybe at the Y store? Or maybe in the Lake C store in the past? Can anybody remember that?
I don't think it was allowed before.
Okay. And I know that reading that email, not this morning, that is just the Nut Lake C store a government building? I think the question was. And I would say, yeah, it is. It belonged to the band.
The Net Lake School is not government-owned.
I think the other thing too is that, like with KBFT and WLY, they're able to broadcast people's political, platforms, or hey, this is so-and-so and I'm running for whatever. But they would have to, work that out with each candidate. So I think that this should be addressed in a personnel policy, so that, to point that out, so that when they're running ads, people can't come running to HR and say, hey, they're violating a personnel policy. No, they're doing it because it's their business. That's just allowable per the FCC rules.
I think where we're running into issues, though, is that the personnel policy only applies to employees. So if, with the candidates we have now, we only have a couple that are employees. So the rules are kind of applied differently as far as political campaigning. So if they're not an employee, they don't have to follow the political campaigning policies in our personnel manual.
Okay.
And I think the radio station, I think I listened to some of the other public radio stations, and they do advertisements for political candidates with the disclaimer on there that, that it's not a, they're not, for, it's not a.
It's like an equal opportunity for
Yeah.
any candidate to come in.
So say if Trump and Sanders were running, they could do it as long as there's not, not support for either candidate. Disclaimer.
Okay. Yeah, I emailed Randy to ask him what his thoughts are on doing it one way or the other, so.
Then
Yeah.
don't they normally, after the candidate has made whatever, if it's on TV or radio, don't it normally say paid for by the candidate on his behalf too?
Who
Yeah.
says that?
Maybe you could.
Well, I think we need to check with the federal regulations with regards to KBFT. And also, I know that for the Bois Forte News, candidates are allowed to purchase articles or space on the paper for their ads. They are allowed so much free, but if it extends or if they want to put in more, they can, but it is at a cost to the candidate. So I think these are some things that we really need to
Put in.
I
look
do,
at.
See.
you know, when I was campaigning, I'd like to use local resources, and then I thought, you know, using Fortune Bay to print up my things would have been a good, but after a while, we discussed it, and I decided to go with,
Can't.
yeah, I know. But that, you know, our printers are local printers, so then I had to go off the res, which was okay because I went to a band member.
Okay. All right.
So would you guys like to see some sort of
Yes.
draft? Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Just to make it easier for all candidates across the board, so
Yeah. Okay.
employees or non-employees. Okay, next we have selection of election boards.
So, Kath,
Oh.
how soon are we gonna have that
Draft?
drafted up and so the candidates are
Yeah.
aware
That
of
should be drafted up as soon as possible.
Okay, to try to make it applicable for this election, you think? Okay, I'll let legal know.
Darren? Come up to the front, sir, please.
You guys figure out if it's allowable to post at the school then, or not?
It should be, it's not a government-owned
Not a
entity.
government. Well, everything on the tribe is pretty much owned by the government, so
Right.
the C-store
Right,
off limits?
yep.
Okay. So we could hold forums too at the school then, probably?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thanks.
thank you. Good idea. Yes, Barb?
I think it would be better served, the entire reservation, if this document had some input from the community or band members.
Okay.
I feel like it's kind of being rushed through
Okay.
based on who the candidates are right now.
Okay.
Because they're not employees. So I think that putting it forth for this election is a little hasty.
Okay.
If this is going to be a document that
It's going to affect future.
every election, anybody who runs for tribal council has to adhere to, I think that we should take some more time.
Okay.
And make sure that it's done properly and right. And because band members are the people that are voting, I think those are the people that should be involved in creating such a document.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Barb. And that's a good point. I know that we do like our tribal members to have input on documents, and we'll probably have to do this then for the next election to be fair
Yeah.
across the board. So I do appreciate those comments. Pam?
So I just got a text and somebody's asking, well, what they're saying is the school wants to know if they can post at the Head Start and KBJR employee entrance and at the Boys and Girls Club entrance at the Net Lake School.
We are leasing the space at the school.
I'm looking at the email from Jeff.
Well, what they're saying is the school wants.
Oh,
I was also wondering, like, at the urban offices, I mean, those are government buildings, but so you can't post there. But there's a lot of people that kind of go through those places and might not really come up here, but still might want to do an absentee ballot. So I was wondering if, I guess, is that something that you guys would be able to do or no?
Do you want me to, would it be helpful if I just read what legal sent us?
yes.
Okay. Section 408 of the Personnel Policy prohibits a variety of political activity, but there is no prohibition based on the location of political activities such as a government building. However, Section V12 of the Code of Ethics could be read to include a ban on election signage at a government building. This section directs employees to use banned property only for official tribal government business and never for political purposes or personal gain or any use not authorized. The minutes from March 16, 2006 reflect this directive. As for whether the Net Lake store would be considered a government building, you can go either way. One could argue that the government building should be limited to only those buildings housing government side functions, which would exclude the Bois Forte Development Corporation buildings. However, I would recommend that the Netlake store be considered a government building where signage is prohibited for 2 reasons. First and foremost, there is an understanding that buildings housing band enterprises, including the casino and the Netlake store, are ultimately owned and operated by the band, which is led by the RTC. So political signage in BFDC buildings could suggest a band endorsement of candidates just as much as signage in other government buildings. Second, it's hard to make a distinction between the Netlake store and other buildings housing band economic enterprises. So if signage is permitted at the Netlake store, then it would be hard to not permit it at all BFDC buildings, including the casino. For the reasons described, I don't think this is advisable. One final thought, it may be helpful to develop guidelines or signage specific to tribal elections that can be made available to candidates and the public. The personnel policies and code of ethics only apply to band employees. A candidate who is not a band employee would not be subject to the restriction on use of band property for political purposes under the Code of Ethics. And while the RTC has developed a signage policy at the March 16th, 2006 meeting, it is not entirely clear what that policy is, who it applies to, and where it applies. There may be benefit in clarifying the details of a signage policy for candidates and the public. So that's how this whole discussion came up.
Okay.
But that doesn't really include the urban offices? Because like the Bois, or the one in the Minneapolis is
Lease.
MCC owned, right?
Yep.
So you guys theoretically could put up posters on the outside, you know, like where Fond du Lac is, you know, you put your signs there. Otherwise, the one in Duluth, I don't think is, the whole building isn't,
No, the whole
Yeah,
building
it's
is
down,
so
not.
you could put it somewhere else in there. Is there any language to that?
I don't believe there's any language to that.
Okay.
With regards to the Netlake School, I think that's kind of the same thing. We're leasing from the Netlake School.
Okay.
But I would think that if it's going to be allowed at the Netlake School, that it would be only on the school side, not at the clinic and the Boys and Girls Club and Head Starts,
Okay.
or the radio station.
Okay.
I think one thing to point out
But
too is that,
good point.
one thing to point out too is that, you know, when they post the results, it's just the results, that's all
Yeah.
it is. It's just not, it's not campaigning for anybody, it's just the results.
Okay. Corey?
Maybe for the school property, we should address the school board and the school administration themselves, so we have a direction, because it's their building.
Yeah.
They can either renew or cancel a lease anytime they want as the end of the years come up, you know, on a contract basis. So
Okay.
that's probably a school question, obviously.
Shane, when does the school board usually meet?
School board usually meets every second.
Okay, so this coming Monday, they'll be meeting again. We should maybe get that on the agenda for the next school board meeting then, to get that clarified, to see if they want that there. Okay, good point, Corey. Thank you. Jenna, can you get that on the agenda for the school board meeting? Okay, next we have selection of election boards. Go ahead, Dave.
I'll make a motion for Janelle Goglite to serve as the chair for the election, the general election, reservation election board. We need 4 on each board. We need a chair, a clerk, a teller, and an alternate.
And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
And,
9 people that have, are looking to
there-
be on the general election board.
Yeah, there's one candidate, or there's one person on there that we have to take off, and that's Mary Lee Little Wolf. She's related to one of the
Yep.
candidates.
Oh, okay, so we gotta remove her from,
Yeah, she wouldn't be able to serve on
Because her
on
sister's
any of
running.
these boards. And she's related to, she's sisters to
Tara.
Tara Gish.
is that, Okay, Mary Lee, and then that, what about the other one, underneath Edward?
Isaiah.
Isaiah?
You?
That is-
Nephew?
Is that her nephew?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Mary
we-
Lee's son.
So are we removing that one, or?
Yeah, just immediate.
Just immediate
Oh,
family.
so he'll be able to stay
Do,
on?
we don't have the copy of the immediate family clause?
Oh, Corey's got it.
Oh, Corey.
You can give it to Dave.
Yeah.
So according to our policy, immediate family includes like your spouse, parents, your children, brother, sister, and grandparents, great grandparents. And the ones that are not covered are aunts, uncles, or nieces or nephews. So
Okay.
in this way, Isaiah could serve.
Okay.
So this is from the personnel policy, right?
Yep.
What does the election ordinance cover this in any way? Do you know? Do we know?
I think, do you have a copy of the election ordinance? You guys have a copy of it, and references the immediate.
Just just references immediate
Okay.
family, so.
I think, if I remember right, I think what it says in the election ordinance, it refers to each band's,
Definition.
yeah. Each band's immediate
The what?
family or whatever. Cora, let me see that again. Yeah, I think in the election ordinance, it references that whatever the band, the governing bands. Yeah, in the election notice, it says it's in regards to the Bois the band's governing, band government personnel policy manual, whatever is in the manual of each band
Okay.
is what it is.
So that was sent to all government places, and then wherever we had our sign-up sheets and stuff, and then we advertised it on our website, we advertised it on our, as best we could to get the list that we had, as well as at the urban offices, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Corey. This yours?
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor by Dave to appoint Janelle Gogolay as chair of the General Reservation Election Board. Do we have a second?
Who did Dave appoint?
Janelle Gogolay as chair. Do we have second by Chief? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? One silent. Motion carried. Next, we have clerk. For the General Reservation Election Board. Usually each council member chooses an individual.
We have this Adam St. George descended. They don't have to be a band member to serve on the election board, do they?
No.
No?
Do they have to be
Yeah, I think, yeah,
a member?
yeah. Wick, you got a copy of the election ordinance there? Yeah, they should, yeah, they're supposed to be a band member.
Supposed to be a band member.
Got the vendor? Okay. We gotta take this guy off then. Oh, okay, all right.
Clerk.
Clerk.
I nominate Tracy.
Who?
Tracy Dagan.
Tracy Dagan.
Tracy Dagan for clerk.
Where's her name at?
Did she sign up for?
It's on here.
Where?
See, what they did was,
Wait a minute,
it
I think,
has, it has, what they signed up for, like X for the general, and then if they want to be on the precinct board, but, when Tracy signed up, she, signed up for the precinct board for District Two.
way over on
Okay.
the right.
She chose not to,
Yep, oh, no,
she
she only
chose
signed
not
up for,
to,
Oh, I didn't see that.
serve on
That's
the
signed
general
up.
board.
Yep.
okay.
So if you look at your, where the X, where it says the general, and it has an X underneath it by the name, them are the ones that signed up to be on the general board. And if they signed up and, they have an X by the precinct, like precinct 1 or precinct 2, then, that's what they, signed up for. But there's some people that signed up for both, either the general and the precinct, so.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, they asked HR to post that. We did, and we collected the names as people were signing up as we went along up until the day of the closing. And so we asked them, are you looking at the general board or a precinct board? And if so, which precinct board? And so we try to group them into that category where people that wanted to do general and or precinct boards were in one group, District 2 in one group, Duluth Urban Office one group, and the Minneapolis Urban Office, because we were trying to gather as many people as we can so you guys could have an opportunity to make selections from a group of people. And that's what that means, is the X's are for general, just like Dave
Yep.
said, and or precinct.
Okay,
And some people just want to do one,
okay,
work the day of the election.
thank you.
Yep, thank
So
you.
we're still looking for the clerk then?
Yes, we are still looking for the clerk.
I'll nominate Jamie Vilbin.
Shane nominates Jamie Vilburn as clerk. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Next is Teller.
My thing was leaning on it, was just spinning across crazy.
I nominate Edward Vilburn.
Chief nominates Edward Villebrin as Teller. Is there a second?
Move.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent.
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have the alternate.
Nominate Stan Day.
We have Stan Day as the alternate, made by Shane. Motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Geez, now what happened?
Silent?
Silent.
One silent. Motion carried.
Hold on, Kath.
Okay, hang on, Dave lost his page here.
Dave lost his page, sorry.
So the general election board is Janelle Goggle as chair, Jamie Vilburn as clerk, Ed Villebrin as teller, and Stan Day as the alternate. Next, we have our District 1 election board.
Dumped on there and it didn't. Oh, you can go this way, can't you? Press that. Oh, no, it went off there.
Next, we have District 1 election board chair. Yeah, we're waiting for Dave here. Go on, keep going. Okay, all right. Next, we have chair for the District 1 Election Board.
I'll nominate Donna Hoffer.
Motion to have Donna Hoffer as the chair for the District 1 Election Board made by Shane. Is there a second? Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Oops, one silent, I'm sorry. Sorry, I went too fast for you. Next, we have the clerk for District 1 Election Board.
I'll nominate Tony Wakeup.
Tony Wakeup. Dave nominated Tony. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent.
Silent.
Trav, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have Teller.
I'll move for Tammy Strong for Teller.
Tammy Strong, nominated by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent, motion, oops, silent.
Silent.
One silent, motion carried. Next, we have alternate.
I'll move for Dave L. Jones.
Dave L. Jones, motion by Dave for Dave L. as alternate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent.
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. So the District 1 Election Board is Donna Hoffer as chair, Tony Wakeup as clerk, Tammy Strong as teller, and Dave L. Jones as the alternate. Next, we have the District 2 Election Board. Chair,
Nominate Tracy.
Tracy,
There's two Tracys.
there's two
Oh,
Tracys.
Dagan.
Chief nominates Tracy Dagan as chair.
Move.
Moved by, seconded by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Trav, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have clerk.
I'll nominate Tara Sam.
Shane nominates Tara Sam.
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Trav, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have the teller.
I nominate Gina Bourget.
Second.
Eugenia Bourget for teller, nominated by Chief.
Second.
Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. Next, we have the alternate.
I nominate Tracy Gijek.
Chief nominates Tracy Gijek as the alternate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. So the District 2 Board is Tracy Dagan as chair, Tara Sam as clerk, Eugenia Bourget as teller, and Tracy Gijek as alternate. Okay. Next, we have the Duluth Urban Office Election Board.
Duluth.
Duluth. We
Duluth.
have, we
Well, we
have,
have 1, 2, 3.
we have 4 individuals for
We
that.
have 4.
So we need a chair for Duluth Urban Office.
Yep.
Chair,
Laura Ferrell.
you,
I nominate Laura Ferrell.
Chief nominates Laura for Walt as chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion, one silent, motion carried. Next is clerk.
I move for Teresa Drift.
Next, Shane nominates Teresa Drift for clerk. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent.
Silent.
Travis, silent, motion carried. Next, we have teller.
I'll nominate Terry Strong.
Terry Strong is the teller, nominated by Dave.
Who's that?
Terry Strong.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, second by Shane. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent.
Silent.
Travis, silent, motion carried. And the alternate,
I nominate Virgil.
Virgil Soam is the alternate,
Second.
nominated by Shane, second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent.
Silent.
Trav, silent, motion carried. So the chair is Laura Furwalt, clerk is Teresa Drift, teller is Terry Strong, and alternate is Virgil Soam for the Duluth Urban Office Election Board. Last but not least, we have the Twin Cities Urban Office Election Board.
I'll nominate Danny Lampert as chair.
Who?
Danny Lampert. Dave nominates Danny Lampert as chair for the
Minneapolis.
Twin Cities Urban Office Election Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
One silent. Trav. Motion carried. Next is the clerk.
I nominate Joanne Boyer.
Joanne Boyer is nominated by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
One silent. Travis. Motion carried. Next, we have teller.
I nominate Janet Day.
Janet Day as teller, nominated by Shane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
Travis, silent. Motion carried. And next, we have the alternate.
I nominate Sandra Hill.
Sandra Hill as
Yes.
alternate. By Chief. Is there a second? Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent?
Silent.
One silent, motion carried. So the Minneapolis Twin Cities Urban Office Election Board is Danny Lambert as chair, Joanna Boyer as clerk, Janet Day as teller, and Sandra Hill as alternate. We have our selection of election boards. Wow, that took a long time. Okay.
Okay. All right, so next we'll have Terry Morrison and Earl Villebrin with a resolution on the Tribal Tobacco Use Project 2 agreement.
Goodness. Morning, Terry. Morning, Earl.
Morning. So this survey is a follow-up from one that was done in, can you hear it?
Is that on?
I don't know.
Is the green light on?
Now, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a follow-up from a survey that was done in 2010. And I do have, if you guys are interested, I do have the copy of what the product we get.
Oh, sure.
Can you handle this? Thanks, Earl. So we get there's a lot of information, there's lots of questions, and there's a lot of data that we can use for grant writing. And they would also come and present the data if you guys were interested.
Terry, will this include vaping, this next one?
Earl has the questions. Do you know?
Earl? Does it include vaping? Because I know that's a big concern among youth.
It is a big concern. Let me look through that one.
Is it possible if it's not included, could they include it?
Yeah, we can ask.
Okay.
I know, and they're doing this survey with every tribe
Okay.
in Minnesota. I think we're the 8th one
Good.
that's been done. Yep, it does.
Oh, good, good. Okay,
If anyone wants to look at the questions, they can.
okay,
But they're probably going to be pretty similar to what was in the old ones, but with the addition of vaping.
okay, good.
So I know there's always questions on who owns the data. So the American Indian Cancer Foundation is doing the survey and they're helping. There's no cost out of pocket for us. In fact, they actually, sorry, I got sidetracked and I figured I'd tell you this part first. So we'll actually get, I think, 1,700 or 1,900. I don't remember the amount. It's somewhere between 1,700 and 1,900 they'll give the tribe for participating.
Okay,
Who does the surveys would be Earl and Becca, because with their grants, they
Okay.
have written in that they can do those. But we also have American Indian Cancer Foundation, is ACAF, is funding up to train 10 community members.
Oh.
That would then get paid per survey in a gift card, which they would get after all the surveys are collected.
Okay.
It will be on like an iPad type tablet.
okay,
And so the surveys will all be done on there, and then it'll register right away with ACAF who did the survey. And then it'll be kept electronically. The numbers and all the information just gets uploaded immediately as soon as it comes back. The people that do the surveys, the community members that get asked to do the survey would also get compensated a $20 gift card, and those are provided by ACAF. Not everyone will be eligible to do the survey. We're doing like a scientific pool,
Okay.
I guess. So we're going to take, we still have to sit down and decide who we're doing. I think we used last time the zip codes of Net Lake or Tower.
okay,
And because the data, and it kind of depends on what we want to use. They are using the total number of adults is like 670. And so they use 2010 census data to come up with that.
okay,
So that's how they came up with the number of surveys we're sending out, the letters we're gonna send out. So I think we're gonna run those zip codes off the clinic user pop.
okay,
And then we'll pull out we'll pull out a list and we'll mail out letters to those people, like a certain amount. So not every community member will be eligible. So if your name's on the list, then you can take the survey. If your name isn't on the list, then you're not eligible. If
okay,
that
so
makes sense.
the
'Cause
survey's just for adults then?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. This is an adult survey.
okay. Do you know, is it gonna be 670?
I think that's our total pop. They wanted us to send out 543 letters, I think. And then our goal is to get 273 or 4? 274 responses. And we kind of want to spread them out between certain age groups so we get a good pool, I
Okay.
guess.
All right,
So, okay, so back to the data. So they are collecting all the data, and they will give us only this nice specialized just Bois Forte data. And any data they use for grants for themselves or they release is a combined data of all the tribes
Okay.
across Minnesota.
Okay.
So there won't be any Bois Forte specific data released unless we release it.
okay, good. So we could use our own data for our own
Correct.
grants?
Yes.
Okay, good. Any questions for Terry or Earl?
Did you want me to read the resolution?
Yes,
Before we
please.
make a move? Okay. Whole thing or just at the bottom?
Just at the bottom.
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved that findings, it is hereby found and determined that the band has full power and authority to adopt this resolution, and the RTC's adoption of this resolution and the band's entering into the TTUP 2 agreement are in the best interest of the band and its members and is consistent with the laws of the band. TTUP 2 agreement, upon review and due consideration, the RTC now approves the Tribal Tobacco Use Project 2 agreement that is attached hereto and authorizes the RTC Chairwoman Kathy Chavers and the Director of Bois Forte Health and Human Services, Dan Milbridge, to execute the same.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the resolution for the Tribal Tobacco Use Project 2 agreement?
Move.
Moved by Chief, is there a second? Second by Dave, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Terry, before you guys go, is it a possibility to do a vaping survey of our youth? Because I know that's a huge issue across the country. What are you smiling at me for?
It's bad,
Yeah,
really, really bad.
yeah, and I mean, is that something we can initiate on our own?
Yeah,
Somehow.
we can. I can have Earl see if he can work on something with his grant.
Okay,
Because I do know just from having kids that age, and Earl also, it's pretty bad,
okay, good.
so.
Thank you.
Big witch.
Good
Next is
job, guys.
Corey Strong with the Bois Forte Reservation Fire Donation Policy.
Good morning again, Cor.
Yeah, good morning. So it was either end of December, early January, something like that. Jenna asked if I'd develop a fire donation policy for the reservation. We had a band member, so we could be consistent. In looking back at the history of our payments that we've made, roughly it was up to, I think it was $500 if a person was renting a place and they had a fire loss. And then if they own their own home, a dwelling, it was up to $1,500 based on availability of funds. And those funds are taken out of the donation committee and our donation line item. So before you is what you have before you is what was developed. It was sent off to legal. Legal reviewed it and came back, and it's pretty simple, but it just gives some guidelines, who to contact, what their expectations are, and what the information that the individuals have to provide before they're issued a payment.
Okay. Once this policy is approved, Corey, can we put it on the website and?
Yeah, I did share this a little bit with the donation committee as well.
Okay.
So, because like I said, it's a reservation-wide policy. Accounting looked at it. Kim was okay with everything, and it's consistent. So it's a policy that'll be applicable to reservation-wide.
Okay, good. Any questions on the Bois Forte Reservation Fire Donation Policy?
I think that once we get this on the website, also to list other resources like the Red Cross. So that way, make it easier for the band members to access. So, put that out there.
We do have an emergency preparedness person on staff now, so yeah, we can run that through them.
Okay, good. Do we have a motion to approve the Bois Forte Reservation Fire Donation Policy?
Move.
Moved by Travis, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shane, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Thank you, Corey. Good job.
Big witch.
Next is Pam Hughes with the FHPAP Contract for Services Agreement Amendment 1 and a resolution for an appointment of Pamela M. Hughes on the Minnesota Behavioral Health Planning Council.
Good morning, Pam.
So the first one is the contract for our FHPAP program, which is the Family Homelessness Prevention Assistance Program. And we did receive an extra $47,514 this year, which is one of the things as the Minnesota Tribal Collaborative that we had asked for, because tribes were never allowed to apply for this funding. We had to collaborate like with the county And so when we had legislation change that we could apply for it, so we applied for it 2 years ago and received, and that time we received that $11,600 or $650. And we were actually recognized in the legislation this year. And we're able to get a lot more money. So what these dollars that we use them for is if people fall behind in their rent, we can help pay up to so much to avoid an eviction. It's even if someone has a mortgage and if they're out ill or something and they fall behind, we can help with that. We can help with deposits. We can help catch people up on their light bills and propane.
Are these homeowners and not HUD?
They can be a homeowner,
Can they be under the HUD program?
yes.
And who would they see? Someone in
They can either contact me or Shar Jordan at New Moon.
Okay.
And these dollars are for our band members that reside on the reservation. And that was an agreement that we kind of made with St. Louis County, that we would help band members on reservation and then refer, if we get calls from band members off reservation in St. Louis County, then we refer them to St. Louis County. You know, and it depends on if they have the dollars
funds available.
available.
Are these funds available in all counties in Minnesota, do you know, or is that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. They just weren't available to tribes to apply for.
good.
You
Any
wanna
other
go-
questions?
Do you want me to read the resolution before they make a
Sure.
motion? Okay. Whereas the band and White Earth Nation Human Services desire to amend this agreement to extend its expiration date to June 30th, 2021, and to increase the total grant amount. Now therefore be it resolved that 1, findings, it is hereby found and determined that the band has full power and authority to adopt this resolution, and 2, the RTC's adoption of this resolution and the band's entering into the contract for services agreement, Amendment 1, with White Earth Nation Human Services are in the best interests of the band and its members and are consistent with the laws of the band. 2, FHPAP Contract for Services Agreement Amendment 1. Upon review and due consideration, the RTC now approves Contract for Services Agreement Amendment 1 with White Earth Nation Human Services that is attached hereto and authorizes the RTC Chairwoman Kathy Chavers to execute the same.
Okay. Any other questions for Pam? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the FHPAP Contract for Services Agreement Amendment 1 resolution.
Move.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chief. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Okay.
The next one, I had been contacted by Maisha Giles, who is the Behavioral Health Director at DHS, and asking if I would be interested in filling a seat on the Behavioral Health Planning Council. And they had an open seat for a federally recognized American Indian. So they had one for Chippewa and they have one for Dakota. And this council here, I know some get it confused with the Mental Health Advisory Council that Melissa sits on. This is totally different.
Okay.
This council was established in 2017, and what this one does is they will actually review like the federal block grants for substance use and mental health. They'll make the recommendations. We're asked to, you know, have like cultural input on it, and we will also, once a year, review programs that receive the mental health and substance use block grants.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jenna.
Sure. Whereas the state of Minnesota has created certain advisory councils and has invited tribal governments to appoint representatives to assist in the work of the councils. Whereas the Bois RTC finds that it is in the best interest of the band to designate the appropriate person to participate on the Minnesota Behavioral Health Planning Council. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bois Reservation Tribal Council hereby appoints the individual named below to serve on the Minnesota Behavioral Health Planning Council for calendar years 2020 through 2024. Representative Pamela M. Hughes.
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution for the appointment of Pam on the Minnesota Behavioral Health Planning Council?
Move.
Moved by Shane, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, silent, motion carried. Good job, Pam.
Pam. Miigwech.
Miigwech.
Next is Doris Isham with the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Agreement.
Good morning, Doris. Good morning, Joel.
So I have a Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Agreement proposal. It's not a proposal, but it's proposing to you for your consideration. And what it is, I'll just explain it for the sake of the audience and council members, is back in 2015 and 16, Volkswagen was sued by the federal government for cheating on their emission control data that they use in their vehicles. And so they were fined a penalty of $14.7 billion in the settlement. And the majority of that went back to Volkswagen people that had Volkswagen vehicles to replace their cars. And 2.8 million then went into an environmental trust to deal with emissions. And $55 million of that 2.8 million was set aside for states and tribal governments, or for tribes specifically.
Okay.
The 2.8 went to the states and tribes. And so Sidra came across this Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust and asked me to look into it. And so I did look into it, and then I found that we need to become a beneficiary of the trust. And if we are accepted as a beneficiary, we can get some of our old diesel trucks taken off the road, and we can replace them with new vehicles.
Okay.
And we have to destroy the old one. You know, they require like drilling holes into the engine or cutting the chassis or something to that effect to prove that we destroyed the old vehicle. But the goal of the program is to get old diesels off the road, and so to reduce the emissions that are going into the atmosphere. And so we did have a meeting with Joel, Sidra, and myself, and we discussed this. And the way the funds are allocated or appropriated is that they will take a portion, half of the money. I'll back up a little bit because I got to say that they're in their fourth year, fourth cycle, or third year.
Okay.
There's 4 cycles, 4 years to their funding. They're in the third year right now. And this year, the allocation will be $16.5 million that they are eligible to the tribes. And the way they allocate that money is they will take half of that, 16.5 million, and they'll give it to beneficiaries that are accepted into the trust.
Okay.
And everybody, that'll be the base rate. Everybody gets that share of that 16.5 million. The other half of that then is based on a formula that they use according to population.
Okay.
And so the tribes that are beneficiaries will get the base rate in addition to the formula
Okay.
based on population. And I've reviewed applications from Red Lake and Fond du Lac, who have been the only tribes in Minnesota that have taken advantage of this. And each year they've received approximately $300,000. And it was at a lower rate in years 1 and 2, and it's a little higher this year.
Okay.
But we won't know what that amount or allocation will be until after all the tribes nationwide have a chance to apply to become beneficiaries. I should say that in year 1, there was 25 tribes that applied. The second year, 45 more tribes applied. And so this year now, it's unknown how many tribes will apply. And so that number is unknown. And so there's a process to go through to become a beneficiary. And I did share these documents with our attorney, and he replied. And one of the things that I bring forward to you for your decision is, well, first of all, whether or not we should move forward. But one of the things we have to agree to, and I think you found that in other contracts, but in agreements, that if you become a beneficiary, then you have to agree that any court actions or disagreements, as far as this is concerned, are subject to federal law. And so it's actually waiving immunity for this particular program. And so we must consent to federal court jurisdiction. I don't foresee, I've looked at it, and the attorney too doesn't foresee anything why we would have any kind of court jurisdiction. We have to follow the guidelines, and we will. Like destroying the old vehicles, using the money, what we say we're going to do with it, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And so the vehicles have to be eligible, deemed eligible, and they have to be between
1996 and 2009, and it's only class 7 and 8 vehicles, so you're looking at single axle dump trucks, tandem axle dump trucks. So, and they will, if we're able to get a plow truck, they will replace the box and the plow and the wing and the sander. So it's a great deal.
Yeah.
We would qualify for it. So.
Okay.
The other part of this is that whatever that allocation is for us, we can use 15% of that allocation to purchase EV or electric vehicle charging stations.
Nice.
And I know there's the only charging stations for electric vehicles that ends over in Carleton County and Duluth area, and I think there's one in Ely.
Oh.
And so anything north of that, people that are on driving electrical cars, there's no charging stations. And so we need to, the Fortune Bay can decide, are they going to provide that service to their customers? Is the reservation going to invest in electric vehicles someday in the future? And so those kind of things.
Good point, Doris. I think looking to the future, with the emissions from the vehicles and what have you, but I was not aware of the charging stations with the electrical vehicles. I mean, that's huge up in this area to not be able to charge, especially if you're coming from the Minneapolis area. So, but yeah, I think that personally, I think that if we don't do it, we're out of the loop. I mean, it doesn't hurt to do it and see what happens. And it seems like the tribes each year they're increasing for applying for this funding, and I think if we got in on as a beneficiary and received some funding, I don't think we'd have a problem destroying our old vehicles.
That'd be the fun part.
That'd be the fun part. So, any comments?
Yeah, I got, reading the paragraph from Jack Holt, page 1, down at the bottom. Notably, the consent to jurisdiction in a modified agreement would likely be considered a waiver of the band's immunity. Then the band may have some counter arguments that immunity has not been waived, but we think those counter arguments are rather weak. Note, though, that the waiver is expressly limited to disputes arising under the agreement. It's not any broader than that. This waiver is not necessarily a deal breaker, but the band should weigh the amount of funds it believes it could obtain under this agreement against the fact that it will have to waive immunity to obtain these funds. That just makes me kind of weary when you have these companies like that and asking us to waive our sovereign immunity. Just makes me apprehensive.
Yes, and that's why I brought it to the council, because of that one paragraph. But I also think that it's just for this particular situation. And I'm not sure, but there may be other agreements that similar language was included, and I don't know if it's been done in the past, but
And you said that Fond du Lac and Red Lake are already participating in this?
yes.
Is there any way we could find out from them what they did, if they, what sovereign immunity they did waive or whatever? I mean, just to satisfy.
I could call them, yeah.
uh,
I do have copies of their applications, and
Must be in there then, huh?
I didn't look that particularly for that.
You know, I understand Shane's point, and I know that this has been done in the past, and that the sovereign immunity is if there's a dispute that arises, like if we're not using the money for what it's intended for, or what have you, and a dispute, it says, could arise, for example, if the band and the trustee disagree as to whether the band utilized funds provided for the correct purposes. A dispute under the modified agreement seems unlikely, particularly if the band complies with all requirements, but it's possible. And that's one thing that we always make sure we do, is that we comply with what we're told to use the funding for, or those other things. You know, I'm sure if the attorneys with Red Lake and Fond du Lac also, I would think it would be the same across the board for all tribes, and they just don't pick and choose which tribes have to waive sovereign immunity. So, I mean, 45 tribes have applied last year, so, but it's up to the council on what they'd like to do.
And I think it's pretty standard language in any kind of contract, you know, to specify if there's a disagreement, what jurisdiction applies, because then you don't have to fight about it once you get to that point. So in any contract, I think it's pretty standard to clarify if we don't agree on something, what jurisdiction applies.
I think it would be a good idea to get their interpretation by, you know, the sovereign immunity, and does it last until, let's say we got a bus with this money? Does waiving the sovereign immunity last until until we do away with that bus, get a different bus? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then I think we need to get that interpreted by them, and then say, yeah, all right.
I will be coming back with a resolution to
Okay.
approve this, so then I can
can at
ask
that
them
time.
that question.
Good.
And also, I'll contact Red Lake and Fond du Lac to see what they've done.
Good. Yeah, I think it, by contacting the two tribes and then also doing a little more, I guess, investigative work, let's put it that way, with regards to the sovereign immunity issue, that would be good. Okay, good.
Yeah, and I think too that they probably explored that issue really closely to what immunity they had to waive, but I'm sure they explored that really well before they made the decision to go forward, so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Miigwech.
Before we get into the memo under the other section, Barbara, do you like to come up and give an update on the land buyback?
Oh, yes. Good morning again, Barb.
I just wanted to give a preliminary update on the land buyback. We actually had 53% acceptance rate for the offers that we sent out. We actually are the highest in the nation in the buyback program. So we spent approximately 1.9 million of the 3.2 million that was allotted to us. And so, and we recouped roughly 2,400 acres that will go back to Bois Forte. The 1.9 million money went directly to band members that chose to sell their land back to the band. So, but I would like to thank the people that helped out with the program. That was Wendy Drift, Jackie Wilson, and Elena Drift. And then Robbie Storbakken from the OST office helped out, along with a couple people from the BIA office and Bemidji. So,
Thank you also, Barb, yourself. You know, I think 53% is a huge percentage, and being the best in the nation is always great for Bois Forte. And we commend you all for your great work and hard dedication in this, because we all know how important our land is to us. And this was up to the tribal members themselves to decide what they wanted to do. So I just have one question. What happens to the other money that goes back? They're not going to...
No, that money will go back into the federal pot and be allocated to another tribe.
Okay, good.
So,
well, great job.
I know too that last week at the TC meeting that they announced in the BIA's portion of the TC meeting that Bois Forte was the 53%, and they said that was the highest that they ever had, and that's what they said, that Bois Forte staff really worked hard and getting that success rate. And just one more question: is there any way that we can? Is there a timeline now where we can go back and try to see, the other ones that didn't wanna sell, or can we have?
The money, I believe it already got put back into the federal pot, and the only chance that we would have again is if we were selected in round 3 of the land buyback program. We were selected in round 2, and so I don't know if we would be selected again. But I think everybody worked hard, because to us it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance for that money to come towards Bois Forte, and then for us to be able to pursue recouping some of our land.
2,400 acres is huge for us.
Yeah. So,
good job.
All right.
Good job.
Then if maybe we could write them a letter or something, thanking them for the dollar amount, and just in the letter maybe we should put that, if we can be selected again in the future, we'd be more than willing to participate with the program and then maybe what we could do is the ones that the 53% that of the people that did sell, maybe we could get a couple of them to come to the meetings when we have them with the rest of the band membership that didn't want to sell, and let them know and what their feelings were on what they felt of the program that when they did return the lands back to the band, so.
Yeah, I think the amounts that went back to the band members that chose to sell varied a lot, but I think our highest amount was over 100,000
Wow.
that one of our band members got. So
Wow.
it was a good program.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm glad we had the opportunity to be a part of that.
yeah, so
Great job.
okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last thing we have is a memo from council, from legal counsel sent to the tribal council. And the subject is whether the council can require its prosecutor to charge and prosecute criminal acts against the band. I don't know if you guys want to discuss it, and then you want me to kind of read through the memo? Or do you want me to just kind of read through it to give a better understanding? Or Shane, do you want to give a little background maybe?
Yeah, maybe Shane, can you give some background on this, please?
Well, what I did was, when we, I had to bring up my email here, I'll read my email that I sent. I sent this to the Jenna and the rest of the council a while back. It says, "Good morning. I would like a discussion on a resolution I talked about at the community meeting on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. The resolution is to address charges against any individual or individuals who steals from the band's businesses and/or tribal government and anyone who destroys band property. If it comes to a vote, some will be charged and others will not be charged, and that's not right or fair. When it comes to doing the right thing, it should not have to come to a vote. With this resolution, a criminal complaint and/or other charges will be filed automatically. Also, charges should be filed and pursued regardless if the FBI takes the case or not. This resolution is in the best interest of our band members, businesses, and tribal government." And that's how this came about.
Okay. So the memo is dated January 28th, 2020. The question presented is, can the Bois Band of Chippewa, RTC, require its prosecutor to prosecute certain crimes against the band, and if so, what must be done to implement the mandate? The short answer is yes, the band's inherent authority to make and enforce criminal laws includes the authority to mandate prosecution of certain crimes. To do so, the council must amend the band's laws to create the mandate, establish scope and limitations, and define the crimes that trigger the mandate. In evaluating the issue, the council should also consider the mandate's potential consequences, which include removing prosecutorial discretion, affecting the court's perception of independence, and discouraging federal prosecutors from prosecuting an offense the band has already charged. And so throughout the memo, he just kind of talks about how to create the mandate, and then he goes into potential consequences. So like he said, the first is eliminating prosecutors' discretion. Currently, the prosecutor must decide whether, when, and how to prosecute an offense, and must dismiss charges that are not justified. Each case is different. To make charging decisions, prosecutors must carefully evaluate the facts, evidence, and circumstances that are unique to each case. As part of this evaluation, prosecutors often discuss the case with the victim to determine not only whether to prosecute, but what offense to charge and what penalties to seek. A mandate would eliminate this nuanced evaluation. The prosecutor would no longer have flexibility to respond to the unique circumstances of a case and decide which criminal offense best fits the crime or pursue the most appropriate remedy under the circumstances. Second, mandatory prosecution may reduce the perception of the court's independence. The court's independence from extrajudicial influence is affected by a number of factors, including the level of prosecutorial discretion. As a general matter, greater prosecutorial discretion is likely to promote the perception of an independent judiciary because the charging and other prosecutorial decisions will be more left to the prosecutor's decision rather than a council mandate. Third, mandatory prosecution will probably dissuade federal prosecutors prosecuting the same conduct at issue. As the council knows, a defendant convicted for violating federal law faces far greater sentences than a defendant convicted of violating band's laws. Consequently, it's important that the U.S. prosecute serious offenses committed within the band's territories, including serious thefts from the band. Historically, federal officials have not been eager to investigate or prosecute such offenses. If the prosecutor has charged a defendant for a crime against the band because prosecution is mandated, it is less likely that the federal prosecutors will later invest the time and resources required to pursue a second prosecution of the same offense. In fact, in some instances, the federal government is prohibited from prosecuting crimes in Indian country where the defendant has already been punished under the ban's law. In conclusion, the council does have the authority to require the prosecutor to prosecute certain types of offenses subject to limitations. To do so, the council must carefully consider the ban's existing criminal laws, establish a targeted mandate that complies with federal limits on the exercise of criminal jurisdiction, and define the precise conduct that will trigger this mandate. In addition, the council should weigh the benefit of the mandate against potential consequences.
I think that, looking from, as a band member, if they're gonna charge one person, but they don't charge the other one, it doesn't seem fair or right. And also, look at how many cases the FBI, the federal government, look how many they've taken and basically sat. They sat and nothing happened. That doesn't look like nothing's happening. And I think that maybe we should put this out to the band members for their input and see what they want us to do, rather than say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Maybe we should say, well, maybe we'll sit down with the band members. What do you want us to do?
I think too, though, that we also need to meet with the departments involved, which would be law enforcement, judicial, and ourselves and our legal counsel to see. I've always been told that when you make a decision on something or are going to make a decision on something, make sure that everybody's at the table. And I think that, I think if we can get everybody at the table and then put it to the band members at that point, maybe do it that way, so that we have all our ducks in a row with our judicial system, with our law enforcement, and with the tribal council and our legal, and then put it to the band members. Because I think everybody needs to be at the table on this one. I don't know how that would affect the court system. I don't know how that would affect law enforcement. And that's just my question. Barb?
We have had some prosecutions from like 2002 to 2011, when I served as executive director. What we did is, if there was a crime committed, such as stealing a check, stealing computers, or whatever, myself and the CFO would contact our legal person, which was Mark at the time, and discuss and send all of the information, all of the evidence to him. He would then make the recommendation whether it was to go to the federal prosecutor or to tribal. The tribal council was not involved whatsoever deciding who was prosecuted and who wasn't prosecuted. That was based solely on the legal expertise of the band's tribal attorney. Because none of us have law degrees, and I think it would be very, I think coming from the tribal government side, I think you would be setting yourself up for potential lawsuits if you were to start mandating our prosecutor to prosecute. I don't think there's already a resolution in place, and it was put in place for the tribal council not to interfere with the judicial process. So if those would just be followed on a consistent basis, and if not only this tribal council, but previous tribal councils would adhere to those, we wouldn't have this issue. Everybody who made any kind of theft or crime against the Bois Forte would be prosecuted either federally or on a tribal side. That's why we're non-public 280. I mean, if we start interfering with the judicial process, I think that people are going to really have a lot of, I don't know, they're not going to have faith in our own judicial system. And that's one thing, by being non-public law 280, we kind of are different from all of the other Chippewa tribes, with the exception of Red Lake. So I don't think that we should mess with that. Okay.
Miigwech, Barb.
I think I was under the understanding too that, that if the federal courts, if they, if the statute of limitations was running out on a charge, they would kick it back down to tribal courts. That's what I was under the understanding, so that the court systems would handle it and it would leave us out of it, which I thought was a good thing, because I thought, nobody's getting away with anything. We're still being able to, as a band, to charge the person with something, whether it be in federal court or tribal court.
Doris?
I would have to agree with what Barb is saying. I think the tribal council, should keep a buffer between tribing or dictating who should be charged and who shouldn't be charged. I think there's ways to accomplish, by setting laws and rules as a government. You can do that, or, to accomplish what you want to do. So maybe you can go at it from that way, but you're not getting involved in particular specific situations.
Good. Thank you, Doris, for your comments.
Miigwech.
I think, this isn't dictating who should be charged or who shouldn't be charged. All it is basically putting a discussion on a table to say, if somebody breaks the law, steals from the band's businesses, they should be charged equally and fairly across the board. This is in no way a dictatorship, period. If somebody steals from the band, they should be charged, regardless.
Go ahead, Darren.
Is the issue the prosecutor not charging these people, or is it the issue, because you said something about voting for the person to get charged? So is the problem the charge not even getting to the prosecutor?
I agree on a certain point that the council should not be involved in tribal court business. I agree with that. But something does need to happen where if people steal from the band or destroy band property, they should be charged, period. It shouldn't be send it to the judicial people and they say, oh, well, we'll decide from there.
Well, that's why we have a court, because they have to get evidence. Just because you think somebody stole something, that's why we give it to the prosecutor. And the cops have to come and conduct their investigation before they get charged, or if the prosecutor even decides to go along with the case, because there might be nothing there. So it would be the band's duty to collect that evidence and turn it over to them. And I don't think the council should tell the courts who to charge with what, because that's what they're there for, to decide the evidence and stuff like that.
Again, we're not telling,
Thank you, Darren.
this isn't telling people who to charge. All it's saying is that something will happen.
Wendy?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would just want to remind everybody that when people are charged with something, they're only alleged to have they're alleged to have committed the crime until they're found guilty in the court of law. So just kind of remember that.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Lieutenant?
I believe some of the question that councilman might have, it comes with jurisdiction also when it comes to members and non-members. We cannot do anything against a non-member. We can't. That's why some of the charges go to the FBI. Now, there's some tribes that they have their own investigation or investigators, and they go through that route. But not sure if, as a condition for employment, a non-member can give up his right and be charged within the tribe if he committed a crime. That's something that Wendy can go into it. we cannot charge him to a non-member. Also, we are seeing some non-members having houses within the reservation. That's another issue that had been raised before. We cannot charge them for some crimes unless they give up their right to be charged within the reservation. So that's something to also take into consideration. In the same token that Wendy says, everybody has rights, regardless of being a law-abiding citizen or somebody conducting some kind of crime activity within the reservation. I know in the last meeting, somebody brought up the point that they give information about drugs and people selling drugs within the reservation and that the police doesn't do anything. Most of the people that provide that type of information, they don't want to put it in writing. They don't want the names to be mentioned. Staff issue, we just have one officer most of the time for the whole reservation, both sides. Can we have that officer doing surveillance at the same time responding to calls plus patrolling? That's something to look into it. Also, it doesn't matter what you tell me. You know, you can tell me that Shane is doing something illegal. I cannot just go to Shane and arrest him for what you said. So I believe some of the members also believe just because they provide you the information, you got the right to go and arrest that person, go into the property, you can't. So, but the big issue I think it is, because with native or band members, we can take the initial report. If we don't think it meets all the elements for the crime, that's when we submit it to the prosecution so they can evaluate the crime or the incident and file the charges. Sometimes we identify one charge. Maybe we can see 2 or 3 other charges. Also, we request a warrant on that charge if we don't arrest that person at the moment. And for the other charges, we request for the prosecution to look into it. But when it comes to non-members, there's ain't that much we can do unless they relinquish their right to be trial in the tribe. If they don't, we can't.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant.
I think one thing I'd like to add is that, as for the tribal council getting involved in the court's business, is that when they do the code updates, they bring it to the tribal council for approval. I just want to point that out.
Jalen?
Laws and stuff. Like, there might, there's a difference between stealing a check that's $75 versus stealing a check that's $5,000. Is there a difference, Shane, or?
Yeah,
anybody?
he did. So in his memo, I'll read what he said here. So second, the council needs to define the exact type of criminal conduct that triggers the mandate. Currently, the prosecutor can charge a person stealing from the band or other crimes against the band under multiple existing criminal offenses that embrace broad categories of conduct. For example, if the mandate is tied to the current offense of theft, the prosecutor would have to prosecute both the child shoplifting from a candy bar from the casino gift shop, as well as the official embezzling casino revenues. So as a result, the council would likely need to create a new offense or refine the existing offenses to target with precision the conduct that will be subject to mandatory prosecution or arrest, and clarify the conduct that should be treated like any other crime.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Jalen. Okay. Oh, Lieutenant, that's okay.
Also, as for damage to property, for example, speeding for non-members, what other tribes do, they go in a civil manner, so they can recover the money civil with citations. The same way, they don't pay, they take it to a collection agency, and either they pay or they ruin their credit. So that's another option that I've seen in other tribes that maybe can be considered.
Good. Thank you, sir. Okay. If no other discussion on this, then we will move to adjourn.
Move.
Oh, motion to adjourn made by Chief. Is there a second? Second by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming.